Hello, friends.
Hey,
How's it going?
it's time for an unhinged Lambda quadrant stream.
Yeah, for various reasons, there are two of us. Our friends are taking care of themselves in various ways, and we support and appreciate that.
Yeah,
But as Anna said, the stream will be no less unhinged for their absence.
yeah.
We gotta we
Honestly,
gotta we gotta turn it up
yeah,
for him, is what it comes down to.
yeah. So I mean, I don't know how many times if we've ever mentioned this on stream before, but whenever we go to conventions, you and I are always roommates in hotels.
We
So
are, and it's
this
great.
is a pretty standard duo.
Yeah. We have lots of fun together. Things that we, including things that we maybe probably don't want to put on
No,
stream.
no.
There's just Anna and I are very comfortable around each other, and clothes are very optional. That's a thing.
Yeah.
And like fully for comfort things. That's not like a hint at anything
Yeah,
deeper.
yeah,
Like we.
no, truly. And y'all know I'm ace as hell. Honestly, I think something I can share is when one time, to me, when I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to bed, it takes me a while to sleep.
Right.
I have to take pills to sleep. This whole thing, and so Callie, I'm in the bathroom. Callie says, okay, I'm gonna go to sleep. So I'm like, yeah, sure. But in my mind, I've got like 3 minutes, and I go, or at least of like, because Kelly was just talking to me, and then I left the bathroom, and I spun out and sang from the musical Ragtime. Harry's in trouble and Stanny's in heaven and Evelyn gets publicity, or like as Evelyn is in vaudeville, or whatever the line is.
Right.
And when I present, I'm like singing and swirling, and then I see that Callie is asleep. There's a snore, and I had just like belted this, and then I go from this big moment, and just I'm like,
Oh my god.
and then like tiptoeing, and then I'm like a beat passes, and then Callie just sits up and goes, "What?" I'm like, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. Being a theater kid doesn't stop, and hi Johnny. Being a theater kid doesn't stop, and like, I wasn't bullied for being a theater kid. I was bullied for other things, but I should have been bullied for being a theater kid.
No, let's not. No.
No, stop theater kids.
No.
Okay, I'm kidding. Okay.
Because your unhinged theater kidness is one thing that I adore about you. I need to be very, very clear. I don't love you despite that. I love you in part because of it.
Thank you. In the 5th grade, I played a character
Well,
was a vice principal that had glasses like this.
I swear we're going to talk about Star Trek at some point.
Yes.
However, I feel the need to just point out that I have a group of people in my life who I always have to be careful how I say this, but I mean it in all sincerity. Like, you are a lot, and it's a thing I love about you. Like, a lot of people say that in a derogatory sense.
Yeah.
And I find most of the people I love in life that I really just feel like a super, super close kinship with, that I just adore being around, are essentially all people who are told by people in their lives at one point or another that they're too much. I said that to one person in particular, and she said, "You know what? Somebody told me the other day, when somebody says that to you, you respond to them, 'We'll find less.'" And I'm like, "Oh yes, yes."
Honestly, yeah, and let's also normalize not calling female-bodied people, especially, too much, because how many male-bodied people with the same characteristics get called the life of the party?
Right, God, that's
Call me the life of the party.
right. Yeah, if people see you as a woman, you're annoying. If they see you as a man, you have
And if
charisma.
you're not a party person, that's fine. I get it. Like,
Right,
we're not vibing,
right.
but call me the life of the party.
Right.
Anyway.
Normalize earnestness and just like loving the things and being loud and bombastic about it if you feel like that's what's right for you.
Now, do you think it'd be weird if I was like loud and bombastic about Star Trek Picard?
Oh my god, that was an amazing segue. Well
also,
done.
hi Hugo. It does all come to Trek at some point.
It actually does. Sometimes it's a problem for me and my social life. A long time ago, X once, big Law and Order fan, And, because Law and Order is just as expansive, like people who are in Star Trek are in Law and Order quite often. And I could not help myself. Oh, that's Random Cardassian 3 from the episode of Deep Space Nine, blah, blah, blah. She would get so mad at me. But yeah, it does all come back to Star Trek. So, yeah, season 3 of Picard, huh?
Listen, sorry, just going on the same kind of point. My sibling and I, Marta, watched the Dick Tracy movie, and
Oh, boy.
that's a stacked cast.
Yeah.
Hi, Cody Bryant.
Hey, Cody.
That is a stacked cast of just celebrities. I mean, it's insane. Wearing Beatty, Dustin Hoffman, like it is truly nuts. Yeah, who's in it? You know what was the moment that my sibling and I paused and screamed, "What? He's in this!" Random unnamed cop in the background, Cole Meany, Chief O'Brien,
Amazing,
just like arresting someone, and we pause and we're like, "That's Chief O'Brien!" So like, yeah, it's
the most important person in Starfleet history, right there, before our very eyes.
Honestly, listen, he's one of my favorites.
Yeah, mine too, hands down.
Yeah.
There's a friend in...
I like that he knows... I like that so many people are like, this is my baby. How many of the engineers are like with their ships like, this is my baby. She's beautiful. I love her. And how much O'Brien is like, die, Cardi, bitch. Like, I love that energy. But also at the same time, he's like, that's why I love this.
Yeah,
this is a broken hellscape.
Yes, he has a very mixed, probably not healthy relationship with DS9, I feel like.
Yeah.
I have a friend who is going through DS9 for the first time and is like slowly learning all of the things. And I had to let her know that O'Brien must suffer is not simply a Star Trek trope. It is a fundamental property of the universe.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah.
So many episodes.
But yeah, Star Trek Picard, hey?
Yes. Star Trek Picard, season 3 was great. Great.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's understood.
I mean, I have gripes, just like I have gripes about every Star Trek ever.
Yeah.
Some things that I think maybe I wish would have gone down better.
I wish Counselor Troy was a better therapist.
Just coming in hot with the hot takes from the jump. Love it.
Deanna Troi has been a favorite character of mine from Next Gen.
Same.
And yet I have always been like, wow. I mean, Marina Sirtis will even say, wow, all of her like love interests are garbage. A lot of the episodes that they had center around her were really garbage. Like there were like much like Beverly Crusher got a lot of garbage. And whereas whereas I feel like Beverly Crusher like finally really got some good, meaty, awesome like character stuff and get to really show like Gates McFadden's range this season and just like how awesome of a character she was. Just Troy's like, and I was saying to Callie before you came on stream, I understood that like a lot of Next Gen writing, part of the reason why she's such a bad counselor is because like none of those writers had ever gone to therapy. But now we're in like a society where therapy is much more common, and I was like, Troy, don't tell him to open the door when he doesn't want to. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care that it's a life or death situation. It's all about love. And maybe not pushing the trauma door that makes the Borg happen. Spoilers.
Well, yeah, I guess, I mean, it goes without saying if we're talking about season 3, it's we're going to be spoiling. So, yeah. But yeah, and also boundaries, right? Like since you started with this one, and of course, I mean, obviously people do things they're not proud of when they're reacting to trauma. I get that. But also getting in your husband's head to mess with his emotions deliberately. That's like, we need to not do that, friends.
Yeah.
Um, what do you love? Tell me about what you love. What's great?
Well, I mean, I think I mentioned I've loved that Beverly Crusher got to like have some real power. I mean, the season literally started with her being a badass, which was really, really great. I also, the twist where that was like, oh, all the using the replicator to change them into like assimilated Borg, and also like the like prefrontal cortex like not developing, that was genuinely good sci-fi. Because I felt like the fact that it was like, oh, we've all debated the whole, hey, the transporter makes a new you, so could they have ever changed the DNA in the transporter, or like, is that really you, or is that just a clone with your memories? I think we've all debated that transporter ethics before.
Oh,
And
have we? And the answer
and
is that it murders you
yeah,
without
and
doubt.
so the fact that they actually used that to like the Borg's benefit, to be like, yeah, they're the same except now the Borg have assimilated them. That was really good sci-fi. And I was watching with my father. And now I've watched all of Picard with my dad, which was very nice because, growing up watching Star Trek with him. Literally we watched and just went, "Oh, and like when that was revealed, I said, one, really good sci-fi, also a really good workaround for all the people who are like, oh, but are we really supposed to believe that all these old people are going to be the heroes when there's like young Star? It's like, honestly, listen, my dad and I were joking, like, low key, that's a boomer fantasy. Like, all the 25-year-olds and younger can't do the thing. We need the old guys to come in. But it worked, and I liked it. And my dad was saying, like, because he's in his 60s, he was like, hey, that made me happy. He was like, I won't lie, there was a little bit of a boomer fantasy that I enjoyed. It was great.
Yeah, I like that. And I get where people are coming from. And it's one of those things that it's like, I don't feel that way, but I get why people do. So I'm like, I don't begrudge folks that. I get it. Not the way that I feel. That's okay.
Oh, about when people are like, why are the old people doing it?
Right.
Oh yeah, I don't feel that way, especially because, I mean, obviously, if the writing was like, and Picard's the only one who could take down like 60 Klingon warriors, just him and a batleth, I'd be like, well, that's weird. I'd be like, that's not ever been his skill set. But I think they did a good job of like, no, Picard monologued at Jack at the end. That's what he does. He's very good at those.
I'm curious your thoughts on having the Borg be the big bad, because that's some of the things that I've seen is that like it's not even that we don't like the Borg. It's just that like we've already gotten so much of it. It would have been cool to explore something else. And I will admit to saying that like it took me a second to get on board. I felt like the buildup was going to lead towards something that would have been like new and generally surprising. Mm-hmm. And I will admit to like when the Borg cube was there, like after he opened the door, I did feel like I don't want to say let down and that like I hated it or thought it was terrible or anything like that. It was just that like my expectation was for it to be one of those like, oh, this is this new thing or like a really new version of a familiar thing. Like I was really into the fan theories about the power wraiths and all of that sort of stuff.
Listen, because you and I are both hardcore Deep Space Nine fans.
Oh yes.
So there was a part of me that was like, but the changelings more, like, like and like the paw wraiths. But ultimately, I kind of came to this point of like, no, hold that in the bag for when you bring the Deep Space Nine cast back. Like, like, because like that's gonna be great because it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. They had so much success off of Picard. There's the discussion of a Star Trek Legacy show, which I think would be a good avenue in a lot of ways for them to go. They definitely set it up at the end of the season with Q talking, and I think that would be a great way of like just having them see some of these other characters. Like they visit Cardassia, and there's Bashir and Garrick, a happy married couple. Just like
because we know that's happening. We know that's a thing.
Some Cardassian war orphans together. Like it would be lovely, and like but also like Bashir knows a lot about Section 31, and also that was my one gripe of the season. I was like, so there's some changelings that have evolved medically, and no one's gonna just shoot a quick message at the doctor who literally cured the changeling like virus, and the doctor was the most experienced with changelings.
Well, you know, I mean, he was, as far as we know, but it's been a minute. There could have been some other.
And I get it. I mean, I get it. He's been retired and married to Garrick for a while. He's been out of Starfleet for a while. I get it. And hey, if they explain it in like Star Trek Legacy of like, well, Garrick being super paranoid obviously faked the two of their deaths so that way no one could find them, then I'll accept it. I'm just saying, you know, I just felt like that could have been nice. To have thrown in there, because you know, but no, I yeah, at first I was kind of like, oh, but you've got so much to do with the changelings, and especially because Vadic was such a good villain.
My god. So yeah, we need to talk about
Plummer?
Yeah, like her as a villain, great, but the acting, just the performance was
she was. So I've been obsessed with Amanda Plummer for quite some time. Because
where else do you know her from? Because this is a thing that I don't know a ton about, so I'm interested in learning.
She's in the Mike Myers movie, So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Ah, okay, all right.
And that was like a movie that like we got in a like weird gift exchange thing like as a kid at a Christmas party, and I was homesick a lot, so any DVDs we had I watched like 50 times.
Ah, okay.
And I always thought she was just had this interesting voice and was delightful. And then also she is one of the many serial killers that they encounter in Hannibal. And she's she's one that is just like
so she's got a brand, is what you're saying.
She plays crazy people. I mean, let's be real, a woman who is not like conventionally attractive, it's like you can
right,
you know, but
yeah, I hate that that's a thing, but it is a thing that we see. Yeah,
of like insane villains, and she kills it often, literally, and she's so good in it. And it's one of those things, like, you know, obviously her father's Christopher Plummer, but you can tell that she is a very good actress in her own right.
Mm-hmm.
And and I mean, she's in one episode of Hannibal, but in that episode I remember being like, oh, there's a lot of serial killers in the show. So a lot of the actors actually that they have for the serial killers, they usually cast some really good ones to make them truly stand out. Like there will be people you're like, I recognize that. Oh, I recognize that. She's one. I forget his name, but the guy who played the android in Aliens, he's like a serial killer in an episode. He's got one scene like where they catch him, and it's great. But she is in she's in it, and she's just one of those characters that's so truly unhinged that she's like, it's fine. Like I've killed a bunch of people, but like it was in a good way. And she's so creepy, and I love her. So when I saw that she was going to be playing Vadic, I was like, this is going to be unhinged, and I'm going to love it. so thrilled. Probably cosplayer.
Oh yeah, amazing.
About those. Also, just Deep Space Nine nerdiness. Dr. Mora, who like tortured Odo and was like, I'm his father, kind of thing.
Yeah,
definitely was a part of that research that tortured Vadic.
Oh, would have had to.
100% he was a part.
Would have had to have been.
Just that's a thing that he had to have been a part of, and furthers my hatred of Dr. Mora. Also, for anyone wondering, this is a Vulcan glass. It's the planet Vulcan's surface. I've got a set, and then I'm not drinking any shots, but I brought my Borg cube shot glass for. But anyway, that was a really long-winded way of saying yes. Like you, I was kind of like, oh, there's so much more, but then. Like, yo, the Borg were great. And again, like the something familiar but different, they did end up doing.
Right, for sure.
Which twist.
Which that's exactly why I ended up being okay with it. I was just initially I was like, it would have been cooler to have some
Borg,
yeah.
I would have been annoyed.
And also, like, shout out to whoever did the art for the Borg cube with the giant antennas on it. That was like viscerally uncomfortable to me. Like, was not a fan of. Like, I was
also, being in Jupiter's little like.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Very good stuff. Very good stuff. Okay, so let's talk about the return of the D for a minute.
Oh.
Oh my God, Anna.
Yeah. The
Well,
return
we
of
did.
the
Yeah.
Enterprise D.
We did promise the
Obviously,
stream
it's
would
the
be
only-
as unhinged as we're used to. I should have expected that. That's actually
Obviously,
my bad.
that's what it stands for. Yes, Hugo. Everyone wants the D. Callie, you're the one who can highlight comments if you want
Oh,
to put those.
yes. So Hugo
Yeah.
believes very strongly, as do we, that everyone wants the D.
The D
And
Enterprise
PD
D,
Patterson, I believe that is our friend Patrick.
Yeah, I imagine.
I too would like to talk about the return of the D.
Like, I think.
Return
Sorry,
of the
I
D.
really.
Return of
I'm
the
literally
D.
wearing a Star Trek onesie. I think the D's even on it on the back, but it's not really.
It is the original.
Oh, okay. That also works. Much like Jack, I am a Constellation class man. So.
Wonderful.
But yes, the Enterprise D, that was cool. The carpeting, which is even around the view screen. I mean, they went ham on the carpet in that.
I saw a behind the scenes picture floating around Twitter where the person who was in charge of the production design for the bridge, I forget her name. I feel bad. I forget her name. But when she was searching for just the right kind of carpet, she actually put up like a wanted sign, like in search of burgundy carpet reward. Like it's very, very good.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I'm very.
I felt really
like,
happy seeing it.
Oh yeah, me too. And I mean, just so expertly done, like down to minute details, like so good. Which is why, like, when people on, I probably spend too much time on Twitter, to be clear, and I understand that that's a problem for me, and not a problem for anyone else.
Since Elon Musk took over, I've cut way down. It's honestly been great for my mental health.
Yeah.
So
I am like, I'm all here to hear like why people didn't like things that I like, or vice versa, whatever, like all for that discussion. But it really, really burns me when people are like, oh, they're just not paying attention, or they just don't care, because that is just so objectively not true.
Yeah.
Right.
That is,
like I am here for
cares.
like, I am here for every discussion of like, I didn't like this story decision because X, it doesn't feel like this works to me because of whatever. Get that. Totally here for that. But some of the behind the scenes stuff you can see where they've got like these art murals that are just full of like old movie and TV show art for inspiration.
Yeah.
That the fact that the way that the LCARS graphics looked on the back of the bridge, like, because I am if I've not talked about this before, I just need to be clear that LCARS is my favorite Star Trek character. Not that's hyperbole, but like
I don't think it is. Again, we've roomed together a lot.
That's fair.
That's
fair.
I think it's LCARS and then the Cetacean Ops dolphins.
That's accurate. It can fluctuate over time, but that's relatively accurate. The wood grain around the table. Absolutely, I did. Absolutely, I did. Just and it looked so much. I saw some side by side pictures of the original set versus that one, and it really is just like if I wasn't looking for it and didn't realize that it was like two physically different things, I legitimately would have thought that like, oh, this looks different because that was shot on film 20 years ago and this is shot with like new fancy digital cameras. Like that would have been enough for me to explain the difference between the way that they look. It would not have occurred to me that it was just like a completely different set.
And my understanding is that Ticonderoga, New York, that has the original series reproductions, I believe that they were saying that they were going to make next gen ones.
Oh yeah.
I'm so, because that I am a hardcore TOS fan as well as a hardcore next gen fan as well as a decent. I'm like, some people really like to rank them. I'm like, I got different flavors for different moods, yo.
I was gonna say, yeah, like
it's
that is a fun exercise. I'm in for that, but
as far as actual favorites, I love them. And so going to the TOS set reproductions on Ticonderoga where it's all four walls was the first time I went. It was magical and almost overwhelming. And I get the vibe based on just interviews, though obviously there's some PR of them, but just of the actors talking about going to the next gen recreation and how that felt like that to them. And I'm like,
Oh,
it's so
yeah,
good.
I can only
There's
imagine.
a reproduction of the bridge that wasn't as spot on, but it was very good. That the New Jersey like Lincoln Science Center did, because they had a Star Trek exhibit that I went to, because of course I did.
Well, hang on, how
and
long ago was it?
this was it was after Discovery had started.
Oh, okay. Different one. So
But
there was a Star Trek Federation science exhibit that went around when I was a kid, and I saw it at the
Mm.
Cincinnati Museum Center, like a very, very long
Cool.
time ago. I feel like I was like 12 or 13 when I went to it. It was very cool.
Yeah, they had like a bunch of different stuff, and they talked about how they had like a fake Klingon mannequin in like a sick bay, and they were like doing
Somebody get this man 20 cc's of any kind of poison.
yeah, and they were like, hey, and then it had like little things of just like tidbits, and also like, oh, like kids like trained to be a science officer, and they're like, scan it, and like they've got repeat organs, and of course like me posting on like my Snapchat back then or whatever. I'm like, or maybe it was my Instagram story, who knows, they're all the same. I like posted, and I remember you being like, that also means they have two dicks, because like that had just dropped, so
Right.
like they have two penises. And I just remember they had a picture of Vorta, and the picture of Vorta that they chose to use was of Iggy Pop as a Vorta.
Outstanding.
And I was like, and I literally like I just remember like putting it up there and using Kesha had a song with Iggy Pop where she literally starts it going, it's Iggy Pop. And I literally was just like, ah!
Good old
having-
Yelgren, Moogie's bestie.
Yeah, I was having a very good time at that exhibit. It was me and Marta and our parents. We were just running around being dorks. But
Ben, you had a birthday party there? Oh, I'm so
yo.
jealous. That's incredible.
Does Ticonderoga do birthday parties?
Oh my god. I mean, I feel like they probably do private tours, right? Like if you pay
They
extra
do
money, like
tours all year round. I believe.
yeah. We need to make that once the TNG
Well,
because I
right.
appreciate the TOS bridge, to be sure. I have nothing bad to say about the TOS bridge, but it doesn't have the emotional resonance for me as the bridge of the D.
Yes.
And
You like
even
D?
more like
That's fine.
this is more yes, I do love
Some
the D.
people love D, and honestly, that's what Lambda Quadrant's all about. It's about not judging your preferences.
Right. I will say though, and this is other discourse that I've seen happening on Twitter, where people I love and respect have different opinions than me, and that is okay. I actually, my favorite Star Trek ship is probably the Enterprise E, and let me explain why. So the D is the ship that I grew up with.
Explaining that in the episode, I believe, is about the weapon systems.
Oh yeah. So the D is like, that's like the ship that I grew up on, essentially. And the Enterprise E, because, you know, I'm introduced to that ship a couple of years later, is in my mind always like the cool new fancy high tech thing that I get to go to after I grow up a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I love them both, to be clear, for very different reasons. But that's actually probably my favorite Star Trek aesthetic, is like a cross between the First Contact, Nemesis, TNG movie era decor and the Voyager decor, and Defiant, so like later TNG, DS9, Voyager era decor. That's like my favorite Star Trek aesthetic by far.
I did want Worf to mention the Defiant when he was like, well, my favorite ship is the E. I was like, what about the one that you lived on, bro?
Right.
Like, out of choice. Like, obviously you lived on the D and the E, but I was like, but what about the one that you had a full space station that you could have any quarters, so he was like, I have to live on the ship and blare opera.
Well, to be fair, he decided to move on to the Defiant because he really hated living on the station, not because he loved living on the Defiant.
But he had some great opera moments there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he obviously picked it because it was, you know, the less bad option. But it's, you know, sometimes we do things because that's the best of bad choices, and sometimes that's what we really want. And I feel like his is the latter. So again, because behind the.
So before you knew what was behind the door.
What?
Because you said pirates maybe, or something familiar that we had not seen before, you know, but change. What were you thinking? Because like obviously, because I've got some meme answers, and not actual memes, but like my joke answers. Obviously, I've got Ronan, the ghost candle, because Jack Crusher is Beverly's son could have actually been Ronan's son, and it would have been a major plot twist. If he had like green eyes.
Right.
He's just
Right.
or just Ronan was just being like, "Hey Jack, I'm here to feed off of your."
I didn't really have a strong sense of what I thought it would be, because I am so consistently bad at making those kinds of predictions. Yeah. Like whenever I really try to pick something apart and put clues together, I am not only always wrong, I am always fantastically wrong. And so I've just learned to accept that about myself. Like, I think of all of the fan theorizing that I saw, the thing that felt maybe the most convincing to me would have been the Pa Wraiths. Because of the red eye thing that is, you know, familiar from DS9, the idea that you know, he was able to kind of like take control of someone else or influence someone else and like see through their perspective. Yeah. All of that just like made sense to me, in that like this is some sort of spirit that is possessing him and can move from person to person in some way. But I still like, I was under. Sorry, there was no part of me that felt in any way confident that that was the case. But if I had to pick, that's probably the one that I was thinking was maybe the most likely.
I genuinely really liked Jack Crusher as a character. I really, really liked him. I thought Ed Spaliers was wonderful. This would have been a horrible choice for them to have made, but I've been so like let down by writing in the past that I was just genuinely so relieved they didn't do it. That when they revealed that, like, obviously he had a bit of a thing for God, what was her name? I'm confusing the daughters' names.
Oh, Alondra and I am.
It's like Alondra and Alessandra. They're like really close.
Snatch our nerd card. Sydney and Alondra.
Oh, nope. So Sydney was the pilot. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Clearly he had a bit of a thing for Sydney.
Yes.
And which I would love to see continue in like a Star Trek Legacy. And then also they established that he can control her body.
Right.
I was so relieved that the way they had him be like, oh no, maybe he's gone evil, was just him like controlling security to bust himself out of there and to leave, and that it wasn't him being like, I'm gonna make her kiss me, because that is that was especially big in the 90s.
Yep.
Now, Terry Matalas had done nothing to make me think he was that that he would do something like that. But I've just been burned so many times. That I had this,
I feel that.
I was like, wow, I was like enjoying the narrative, but I was also like terrified, like white knuckling it. And now, like, I want to honestly rewatch the series not terrified.
Yeah.
Like I remember you describing watching when Adira was introduced and they kept misgendering Adira, but then they had the
so many episodes
and then they had the gender reveal, and you were saying like that the first time watching it was very stressful, and that now you'd like to rewatch it not stressed out.
Oh yeah, and I did. Like I enjoyed that season more on the second watch than on the first watch, mostly because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really know.
Blurry? Sorry.
And the other thing too is that I don't know, the way that I experience entertainment is I am, especially when it comes to Star Trek, I will just be honest and say that I will err on the side of finding a reason to like it and to be entertained by it.
Yeah, I mean, I watch entertainment to be entertained.
Right. And so like all that's to say that like if we're looking for the problematic or bad thing, you know, not to say that like I'm immune to it. There's obviously plenty of things that I can gripe about and maybe will. But I'm just going to err on the side of loving it because I love Star Trek.
Yeah.
And so when I watch, I really do just kind of like, I'm just going to let the show happen to me. Yeah. And I don't try to do a ton of figuring things out or analysis ahead of time because not only am I wrong, usually what I end up seeing, because I am not a screenwriter, I don't make TV shows, ends up being far more entertaining to me than whatever theory I had thought up for myself.
And that's like, you know, I loved my major, studying screenwriting and film, but also the true horror of it is how much I try and not just guest shows, but there's mechanics in shows of like, oh, they had to do this to do this.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Like, I don't even remember what it was. So there was something in the finale that I felt so bad because I literally paused. My dad's like, "What?" And I was like, "So the reason they did that was because of that there."
Yeah, well,
And I started-
that's.
Also,
Oh yeah, actually, speaking of, this. So here's a gripe that I have, and it's to be clear, it's not something that prevented me from enjoying the show or anything like that. I completely get the fandom's love for Liam Shaw, but I think the show kind of did him dirty a little, because
continue.
So one, I think it is, if you're going to be a captain, it is incumbent on you to have your stuff together that you don't do a bigotry to the people under your command.
Yes.
Like
I've got so many thoughts on this.
Like
so please.
his trauma is entirely understandable, and I totally get that. But if that's going to mean that if a subordinate of yours is an ex-Borg and you have to be a jerk to them because of that, then you don't get to be captain of a starship if you can't. Like that, I feel pretty strongly about that.
Leave any of your bigotry in your quarters. There's no room for that.
Right.
Or like,
right.
Leave any bigotry in your quarters. There's no room for that on the bridge.
Right. And
somebody said that. Was
yeah.
it the greatest captain? Captain Kirk?
Oh, yeah.
I love Captain Kirk.
And so I feel somewhat about him the same way that I do about Keiko O'Brien, in that I love Keiko. I love Rosalind Chow as an actor. Just absolutely incredible stuff. But I think she fell victim a little bit too much to being a character that exists to service other people's stories.
Yeah.
And that led to her not really feeling like a fully formed person of her own.
They gave her a lot of 90s nagging wife.
Right, exactly. And then
every once in a while they gave her some meatier characters, or well, sometimes they gave her like an inkling of more character, and Rosalind Chow like ran with it.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I forget the name of the episode, but the episode where she's feuding with Kai Wen over teaching, like, that is such an incredible, her performance is amazing. The writing of the episode is incredible. But yeah, sometimes she really does exist to play the like stereotypical nagging wife, and it sucks. Like, it's a disservice to the character and a disservice to the performer, I think.
Yes, I agree.
And that's when I think about Shaw, that's kind of the thing that I see, like a very cool character, fun to watch, obviously played by an extraordinarily talented performer.
I will say because I was on the cruise.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that's part of why we all decided we loved Shaw, because you cannot underestimate how much we loved him on the cruise.
Oh,
he was so fun.
Yeah.
And he would like mingle a lot.
Yeah.
And
so dipshit from Chicago.
Yeah. And I had not realized he was a D&D fan. And because and also like I knew his work from my
he wrote a D&D mixology book, right?
And I was like, wait, I didn't know it was that guy. Oh shit. Like, and I was like, I want to talk to him about D&D. But no, instead I argued with him about jazz. No, I didn't argue with him. He agreed with me. I was just like, for the record, jazz does have meter, structure, and like rules to it, like tempo. That's all of those things are very much in jazz. And he was like, it does. It absolutely does. And he was like, I didn't write it. He was like, but it does. And
that's fair. That's fair.
And I was like, I'll be honest, I'm not even the biggest jazz fan. I just like, I knew that my old music teacher would be upset if I didn't say something.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
I texted my old like high school music teacher, and I was like, "Hey, I was on the Star Trek cruise, and just wanted to let you know." And because he was also a Trekkie, he hasn't seen the new stuff because he has 4 very young children, and he's been like, "I gotta watch. I just have no time."
Yeah, a time signature that's not 4/4 is still a time signature, to be clear.
Yeah, like, and I was just because I texted him when I went to the premiere before it aired, and I said, "So no spoilers, because like I can't say anything about the premiere, but there is a guy who says this lie about jazz, and I want you to know that the moment the episode ended in this theater, I like turned to the person next to me and said, jazz does have tempo, meter, and structure."
So we have a special guest joining us.
Yes. Oh, no one wants to hear my jazz hour. It's Kennedy.
It's my friend.
What up? Hey, what's up?
Hello.
How are you? It's Kennedy,
so
also
good.
known as that Mikey chick, better known as the Stormtrooper, presently known as Kennedy at Warp. Ooh. And I'm so sorry I'm late.
You're fine.
You're fine.
Time is a construct anyhow. It's man-made.
We were
like
hard
just
agree.
We were
No
just
one
getting on
cared.
the topic of Captain Shaw. And
Oh, you
and-
mean adding to my fictional problematic boyfriend collection? Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was about to say though. So Todd Stashwick, wonderful on the cruise, absolute sweetheart.
Okay.
And I absolutely loved him. And then when I found out he did D&D, like does D&D, I was like, wait, shit, I should. Yeah, I was like, if I'd realized that at the time, then I would have been like, so are we getting a game going on this cruise?
Right.
Like, let's go. Like as a hardcore D&D fan. But I was saying because Callie was saying how while he's a wonderful problematic character, why is Starfleet letting this man be captain when he's clearly bigoted? And here, this goes into my earlier point about Troy is a very bad counselor. Starfleet has a problem. like Troy is like they're like she's a great counselor and she's never been a good counselor and she was particularly bad this season because after literally saying to Jack, you're not gonna go in alone. I'm gonna be there when making him visit trauma. He did an open trauma. He did not want to open. She then runs out of the room and leaves him after just promising him he would not be alone. And then just all the stuff, and then like doesn't go to be there at this while Picard talks to him to like mediate the conversation, or even suggest, hey, maybe his mother who's raised him this whole time should be the one to talk to him. And just anything. And also like used her mind powers to literally emotionally manipulate her husband during his period, like things like that. I'm just saying Ezri would never, but that's a whole other conversation. But then again, she does have the like wisdom of like 8 lifetimes. So,
all right, Kennedy, let's hear some of your thoughts because Anna and I have been yelling about Ars for the last 40 or so minutes.
My last thing is, when Kennedy's done, I have my hope for Shaw, because I do have a reason why he could come back, and this is where the screenwriting degree comes in, the fanfic.
Girl,
I can pitch to y'all later. So okay.
He dead though. Like he dead. He's not just like Star Trek dead. He's
so
like
is Hugh Culber.
he caught 2 caps to the
He's
chest.
Fine. He's
Right.
fine. He's cool as murderer.
He saw the Black Mountain, the image of his father, and a koala smiling at him.
It's
over with.
Yes, Kennedy, please.
That koala. Geez. Let me start by saying I have kept my mouth shut for 3 seasons because I wanted to let people enjoy things. But I am under the impression that Picard is a prime example of when you don't attempt fan service, right? And I've been trying to organize my thoughts around this because I have so many of them. And this is
I thought you were going to say men who don't go to therapy.
I mean, that could be it too. Who am I to say? But I say all this to say Star Trek has the rare, unique boast of being able to not need to service fans because the franchise, the content itself is so robust and vast that you don't really need to work to find a deep cut for something, right? It's unlike comics to movies where everyone who is a fan of the comics just generally agrees to not, reference them as they watch these films. They totally accept and recognize that it's 2 completely different mediums.
Yeah.
It's why I had to stop watching the films because I was being too much of a bummer.
It's like if you read books that get adapted into films, it's the same way. So unlike that, right? And they don't have to dig through tomes and tomes of volumes of different authors and different artists and all publishers in some cases to get to some random fact that some nerd in the back is going to be like, oh my God, I have that minted and booked and bagged and signed. Like, Star Trek doesn't need to dig that way. All you have to do is watch the show. Watch any given show, and you can find a deep dive that's going to entertain the ever-living heck. Are we FCC here, or what? Do we care?
PG-13.
Oh, I was going to say,
I'm so glad I asked,
you want.
because that was about to get ugly. Yeah, like they really do not need to dig that far to make a reference to something that's going to excite the fan base. Generally speaking, that is precisely why Lower Decks is so successful, because all they're doing is digging through deep cuts. And that show is evident that some nerd sat there and took notes on every single episode of Star Trek that was put in front of them and reached for the deep cut. So some nerd in the back would be like, "Whoa, I have that figure," right?
Yeah.
Picard is the exact example of what not to do, right? You don't have to reach for reconnecting things that have been resolved, right? Like they were so many references to things that made everybody so excited, right? The simplest of things. All you have to do is pause it and zoom in on the ship registry, and you're gonna lose your mind if you know anything about the show or the movies, right?
Yeah.
So
the part that made me cry was when it was Anton Chekhov.
Yeah, see that I felt
that's when I cried.
So that I felt was too much, right?
Okay.
Because losing Anton Yelchin was a freaking tragedy, right? Walter Koenig has experienced real tragedy when it comes to losing immediate family members. I feel like you should let this man live. Like, let him deal with this. Why are we forcing people out of retirement to interpret some type of real life lived experience trauma and then like try to put it into theater? You know what I'm saying? I just feel like
was that Walter's voice?
Yes, that was Walter Koenig playing Anton Chekhov.
I didn't know that.
So it's a great touch, and it's a huge flex on the franchise to be able to do that, cross several generations, reach back and pull somebody in. That's exquisite to me. But it also, like, with great power comes great responsibility. You know what I'm saying? Do not bring up Irumodic syndrome if it didn't actually exist in canon. Picard never had Irumodic syndrome, children. That was something that Q put in his brain when he was flipping out in the very last episode. That tells me that whoever was in that writer's room was like, let me watch Nemesis real fast. I'll skim through Insurrection. Oh, First Contact, that's my jam. Why don't we do a whole series about First Contact? But not really, because that would be weird, but we're doing it anyhow. And let me see how I can put this together. And I just felt like there were reaches for things that we didn't freaking need. We didn't boldly go anywhere. There were no new life, no new civilizations. I feel like this is a good example of what happens when you pander, because a certain demographic of people, just me brushing a broad swath, right? A certain older demographic of people ate that shit up, right? Because it was for them. It was safe. It was comfortable. It was like Strange New Worlds all over again. You know what I'm saying? And I do not come to Star Trek to be safe, to be comfortable, for my boundaries not to get pushed, for my perception not to be challenged in some way. Like, I would not be the individual that I am today if I wasn't raised on Trek. And this is not pushing any boundaries, like, at all. Yes, the Titan is shiny. Ooh, she a good looking ship. The F, may she rest in peace, was sexy as hell. So what I got this raggedy old Enterprise D out here for? This shit, hey, first of all, ain't nobody on the
carpet.
Oh my
God. Carpet though, Kennedy.
Bruh, like, come on. I do not feel safe going into a live Borg cube in this 35-year-old raggedy, dusty, musty, funky behind ship.
Yo, I didn't realize they were gonna fly into it. Can I just say, when they started flying in, I went, what?
Yeah,
you know it smelled in there.
It has to.
That was his garage project. He wasn't cleaning that carpet. Come on.
Yeah.
But I digress. I just feel like there was a lot of grand reaches for our emotional investment into this franchise, not even this series or this crew. And I personally walked away from this series at this point feeling emotionally abused, between introducing us to characters that we never hear from again, between seeing Rafi, yet again, another Black woman, go through trauma in Trek in order for her talents to be respected and acknowledged in the first place.
I was so scared she was gonna get killed. I'm glad they didn't do that, at least. But
for you bring me in emotionally to get invested in Seven and Rafi and then never speak of it again, but only in a professional sense because they're just good friends. Fuck out of here. And also, like, Brent Spiner is emotionally abusing us at this point. Like,
the Yar thing?
If we take a step back and look at it for what it is, this is emotional abuse. He's creative control at this point. It's not like he's just doing what is written and is what is directed of him. Like, he has creative control over this narrative at this point. And not once, not twice, but 3 times we have watched Data die.
He's become Kenny.
It's upsetting.
Oh, God.
Because this is not like some random character where it's funny. in the case
Yeah.
of Kenny in South Park, right? Like it's part of the shtick. Like, no, all of us are emotionally invested in Data.
Yeah,
all
I
of
don't want
us.
Data to die anymore.
And to put us through knowingly knowing that's the difference, right? It's not like, oh, I had no idea the character. You know good and god darn well that we love Data. So don't sit here and choose to kill him multiple times.
Yeah.
Only to bring him back and then doubt his abilities when you're in a moment of crisis. In that split second when they were on the bridge in the last scene, and he's about to pilot through the John, and LaForge was like, my daughter can't even do this. I was like, well, I know he's not talking about Alondra. And you know, it's just humanly impossible to do it. I was like, bing, bing, bing.
I was
in person.
Have we learned nothing?
And everybody was like, Data, it can't be done. Data, it can't be done. Data,
it was weird because how many times in Next Gen were they like, Data could do this? And how many times did they have to nerf Data in Next Gen to be like, so, we have to like have him be like, what's the episode, The Game?
Yeah.
Where they they just turn him off.
Yep.
Because otherwise, obviously, he'd fix it in a minute. Like, it was very weird.
For them to question his greatness and the writers not take the opportunity for Brent Spiner, in all of his well-earned, in most cases, hubris, to turn and say, guys, come on.
I'm Data.
Trust me.
Right.
And if they had turned around and been like, you right, I'd have been like, let's go.
How great would it have been if he turned around and said, if he just looked at them and like,
because we do have plenty of those moments where somebody of some kind turns around and is like, asshole, you know me, just trust me, and it's you have to say that once, and everybody's like, all right, go for it.
So now not only have you emotionally manipulated me by killing this brilliant, exquisite being multiple times in front of my face, but now you're insulting my intelligence and assuming that this new body wouldn't be able to do it. Like,
my biggest gripe, genuinely, with the Data stuff this season was that they mention that Dodge. Not Dodge. Sorry. I was in the group chat with Callie. I was like, "What the?" Where they mention like, "Oh yeah, there's gonna be a little bit of lore, and there would be a lot of lol." They mentioned, and then they were like,
"B4." Like, what the heck does B4 need to have anything to do with it?
They said lol and B4, and then. And then the thing where Data was woken up, Brent Spiner's like, I'm Data. It's like, I'm lore. And then he's like, I'm B4. And then no mention of lol. And I was like, test Brent Spiner.
Yeah, it's
make him be lol.
And
I wanted lol to be shown. I was mad that they mentioned
any acknowledgement of the other children involved. Like, how dare you mention Wesley so many times and not have him pop up in some savior moment at the very end after we needed him? How dare you say we love all your children, look Worf in his face, and then be like,
right, like not even hear the name Alexander throughout the entire season.
Looked at Picard and is like, so you're a father now, like, and I was like, yo, you should probably say something like, hey, don't do what I did.
Just any kind of acknowledgement about Alexander Kimtar Roshenko. None. None whatsoever.
I did like that at least he said that the Roshenkos were his family in it, but then later when I literally messaged, and this is another thing I messaged in the group chat, when it's like, but he's a Ferengi and you're a Vulcan. How could you be related? I was like, dude, you're literally adopted by humans.
Right.
I was like, how do you not know how adoption works, my guy?
It's just frustrating. And I don't say this to say that I hated the entire series altogether, right? Because there were so many cool gems. But I feel like there was a real missed opportunity if you're going to pick up where the show left off, right? As far as this farce of the Aromatic Syndrome and the Borg and the Changelings and taking things from other franchises all willy-nilly, as they did, right? If you're going to do something to that extent, like pick up where the films left off. We know that the Romulus's star is blown up. What happened to the Remans?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are they okay? I'm sure they're pissed if they're not. We don't want to explore that. We talk about, there's only one child. So we're just gonna completely forget that Tom Hardy blessed us with Shinzon?
Did he ever? God.
That was a blessing.
That man worked.
That was I was so convinced that Patrick Stewart had done the mocap stuff, and they had picked a younger actor to just kind of put like superimpose it on, because I was like, there's no way that is the same face. That's the same thing, the same
Right.
height. That's
Right.
His mouth is a lot more pillowy and plump and delicious
favorite-
looking, but that could be a filler. That could be a filler. This is weird. What's going
My
on?
favorite Tom Hardy moment. Sorry, this is just important because it's anytime Tom Hardy's mentioned, I need to mention it, is someone's like, "How did you bulk up so much?" And part of me thinks his real answer was steroids, because I think a lot of the people use steroids in Hollywood and aren't honest about it. But instead, he just paused and then just went, "Chicken." And that was it. And it was the funniest. And I was like,
Yeah, true.
and I was like, my man. But
True.
yeah,
So I just
no, I think it's important for you to say.
Yeah, and even when Troy was mentioning all the kids, she didn't even mention her own child. Kestra's at the academy as it's
Kestra.
being infiltrated. Are you not concerned? Like,
Yeah.
I
Right.
have questions. You don't feel like it. I just.
Also, that actress, Lulu Wilson, who played Kestra, she was very good in season 1. I was really bummed not to see more of her.
I hope she's in the Starfleet Academy series. You know
Isn't
what I mean?
Starfleet Academy taking place in the Discovery era?
Oh, is it? Good.
So they haven't confirmed it for sure, but the in-universe press release thing they said was the first class at Starfleet Academy in 100 years. So that tells me
Yeah.
that it's probably post the burn.
Which I hope means that Tilly's in it.
That's what I am.
I'm hoping
That's what
as
I'm-
well.
Because
Um,
and David Cronenberg's just kicking, being confusing, with his glasses being like, "I like the aesthetic."
I will say, I want to, like, I guess, as we come up on time, one thing that super worked for me in this, the series as a whole, I have a lot of gripes about Picard as a series. I think season 3 is probably my favorite. I still have gripes about it. But a thing that I deeply appreciate, and this is very specific to life experience for me. So my father never chose to be a part of my life. And I didn't know what a trauma that was because my mom did such a great job at just being all of the parent that I needed, right? And so it came to me being an adult before I realized, what that was about. And so Jean-Luc Picard, legitimately a stand-in father for me in important ways as a kid, right? And as I grow into being an adult, I started to understand some of the things about, like, I mean, he is... I love him, but he is the rich, privileged white dude of the Star Trek universe, right? Like, on a vineyard, everybody thinks he's top dog. He gets to get away with whatever he wants, regardless of how it affects everyone around him. Especially if you look at All Good Things, where it's like they're literally doing a mission and putting a ship at risk because of him. And like, we're supposed to love that, but if you think about it for a second, that's actually not super great.
Also, all of Star Trek Picard was that.
Right. But in Picard, there is some really poignant moments where people absolutely call him on his shit and are right to do so.
The
Yeah.
sheer fucking hubris line was
Yep.
right.
Yeah.
And when Deanna Troi looks him in the face and says, "How dare you?" Like, she was correct to do
Yeah.
that, right? And in season 3, when he finds out he has a kid, and he, in his really, like, bumbling, not always successful, kind of cringy sometimes ways, decides that it is super important for him to give a shit and try. And seeing that happen was such a thing for me, because that's like in my adulthood, understanding all of the issues that my dad had, all of that sort of stuff. I could live with him trying and having failed. What I can't square is the fact that he never tried.
Sure.
And that's just the thing that I'm going to live with forever. And and like watching him realize that, like, okay, I didn't have a kid, so obviously I'm not sure I could have done anything differently, but it still has him consider a lot about the things that he's done wrong in the past, especially when Ro dresses him down. My God.
Woo! And that's another thing. Talk about emotional abuse. How dare you bring back
Right.
who should be Commodore,
Right.
frankly,
I
Ro
love
Laren,
Ro.
have her read everybody to filth,
And
and then turn the page, and then make her die immediately.
Also,
How
it
dare
was
you?
true that she was tortured, that she was
Yeah.
re-educated.
Yeah. She was correct.
And also, like, how dare you bring back Shelby, who humbled the ever-loving crap out of Riker, apply real-time pressure to this dude, and then kill her immediately? How dare you focus a story on the Borg and not bring in Janeway? Because we all know
Or
the
the
Borg does not
changelings and not
mess-
have,
No, you couldn't. You
anyone
couldn't.
wanted to do Space Nine.
You couldn't talk to Bashir.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, Anna said that before before you
Bashir.
joined. Yeah.
I get it, and I did say I understand that Derek had them fake their deaths because they're married and in love with each other, and it was like he was concerned that, like, you know, if people knew that they were married, that's a weakness someone could exploit for Garrick. I understand that, but I wish they'd said it, you know, that they all thought Bashir was dead because he's married to Garrick and they faked their own deaths, and they're off catching butterflies, and it's wonderful.
Well, and I also
Floppy.
understand that
Floppy did not
often.
include Bashir.
I also understand that governments often don't learn from the past and make mistakes over and over again.
True.
So Starfleet being stoked about joining all of their ships together in a network like that, I can buy. What I cannot,
especially after Discovery.
what I have a hard time buying is Elizabeth Shelby's enthusiastic leading and endorsement of that program. That's a place
I thought
that's
she
tough
was
for me
a
to get.
changeling for sure.
You know what I found interesting about that from Shelby? They are on the heels of war, right? And on the heels of a humanitarian. That's a technically racist thing to say. They're on the heels of a resuscitation mission, right? In terms of helping the Romulans not be refugees anymore. You know what I'm saying? So the trauma of both of those events are still very real. And I can understand them being hyped, like you say, to, you know, regather, like refresh, you know what I'm saying? All of that stuff. Yeah. And I excused Shelby's enthusiasm because we don't know what she went through.
That's true.
To get promoted.
Who she lost.
Right, exactly.
Well, yeah, and I mean, 35 years, right? Time changes a lot. Yep.
You never know.
Fair.
Some of the most left-leaning people go through some type of crisis and boom, all of a sudden they're on the right. And that happens the other way.
You either die hero or live long enough to see yourself in the sequel.
Exactly.
You were mean to me, so all of a sudden I'm racist. Yep, that is a thing that happens.
I was racist and you saved my life, and now I'm reevaluating all of my decisions, right? So any of those things can happen.
Hashtag Captain Shaw.
Anyway, don't get me started about that one.
Can I give because I did promise it to the viewers. I know we're going over, but I'm having fun.
Yeah.
Wait, I just wanted this one last little thing.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm good. I don't have anything to go to.
Like, how dare you write a storyline about the Borg and not include Janeway, knowing good and goddamn well the Borg cannot deal with Janeway in any capacity whatsoever. Seven and Picard and a multitude of XBs are still dealing with the trauma of being assimilated and surviving. Janeway, Tuvok, and B'Elanna got assimilated on purpose.
Yep.
On purpose. Janeway dealt with the Borg Queen so good she got her crew back, wasn't satisfied, hacked the system, went back in time, beat her ass again, and then got her crew back in one piece. Every time the Borg show up and Janeway's like, "You good?" She's like, I was this is nice out here in the Alpha Quadrant. Y'all live out here like this? This is cute. I just wanted to see
I was just
air was like over here. I didn't really know. So I didn't know you was here. I thought you was, I don't know where you was, honestly. I was just trying to holler at, well, never mind, don't worry about it. I'm gonna talk to y'all later. Bye. And then, that's the only acceptable response to the Borg at this point.
Right.
As far as what we have seen, it's a Borg problem. Bring Kate in here. Bring Kathy. Auntie Kathy will get this in line real quick.
Yeah. And I mean, like, at least they did mention her. Because, like, obviously I was very frustrated that they didn't even mention Bashir. Especially, and I was like, is Worf just petty?
Yeah.
Does Worf be like, I don't know anybody who could help with this? Because maybe Bashir kind of slept with Ezri. So I'm not going to mention, like, I don't know. But my reason for why Shaw could come back. This would be a season 1 finale reveal of Star Trek Legacy, which is that show they're discussing. We know Borg can do crazy medical shit.
It's true.
They can bring him back. They assimilate him the old-fashioned way. I mean, you're telling me their end game is just to have people...
That's the other thing. Picard just gonna plug himself into the Borg collective like he got a USB-C drive? What the heck is going on?
He's got an Ethernet port. He's got a Cat 5 jack on his neck.
If Picard can do that, they can do that for Shaw. Also, no one had a medical tricorder on them. They were just like, he closed his eyes. I guess he's dead. They didn't check his pulse. So maybe he wasn't even dead. And then season 1 reveal, he's been assimilated, and now he's an XB and he has to deal with that shit because that is good character. That's some good character arc to deal with.
Yeah, no,
And-
I don't even like it because I'm still mad that Picard picked up an XLR cord and was like, "Here we go." Oh, hey son, how you doing? You don't want to stay in here. It's weird. Trust me.
Like,
Trust me.
you know, it did actually really touch me though when Jack's like, "No, I don't want to leave," and then Picard's like, "Okay, then I'll stay here with you." I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, that's the only acceptable.
I was like, "Look at that."
Because like, and of course, multiple things can be true. Because Kennedy, you are 100% correct. But also, that monologue just broke me.
Yeah.
Like, you're the part of me that I never knew I was missing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Broke me.
I just, I have so many thoughts, and I see we're already going over. So
No, you're good.
I've got some memes to share.
Memes.
I made some dumb
memes?
Jack Crusher memes because I had some extra time.
Yeah, it's a great place to end, I think.
I don't know, just to end on a happy, silly note.
Yeah, because I'm about to be angry again, all over again. I'm about to be mad.
All right, here we go.
Nepo baby, Nepo. Oh, real shit.
he's Nepo baby with Nepo problems.
Real talk.
And then I also made show me the real Jack Crusher. I said the real Jack Crusher perfection.
Ooh.
Too soon? Nah.
Those are my memes. Those are the two memes. I don't know why
I
they
was
were both
like,
about
tell me
Jack
more.
Crusher. I know I should make more, but my favorite is my Nepo baby Nepo problems.
Yeah.
Because honestly, that was my spoiler-free review that I tweeted. I was just like, spoiler-free review of Picard season 3 finale. Hashtag like Nepo baby Nepo problems. Not just the Borg, but fucking Q's in here. Like, no.
Ooh, John
I didn't
Delancey.
mention that every single person apparently in the Picard line has to go through a trial because he didn't just be like humanity's trial for Picard. He went back in time and made Renee go through some shit, remember? Season 2? So now he's like, "Oh, Jack." And Jack's like,
Weird.
"No, I kept the last name Crusher. I thought I'd be good."
Weird. It's creepy. Like,
Yeah.
can we discuss the fact that
my
Q
golly.
is an emotionally, apparently sexually, physically, metaphysically abusive person? Can we whatever? Can we admit
I mean,
that? Because
I will say I had a lot of problems with season 2, especially Picard, but I will say something that I genuinely was like, that does make sense to me, was that he did all of that shit in season 2 to get a hug from Picard. I was like, that's some nonsense that Q would do.
makes me so angry.
Because
There was-
like,
It's just
well, listen, men will do anything but go to therapy.
clearly.
And that's how I felt watching Q be like, "I'm gonna do all this stuff," and then Picard's like, "Oh, I get it," and then hugged him, and Q was like, "That's all I wanted," and I was just like, "Is that it, bro?"
And that was also like, I felt emotionally abused there as well, because obviously,
They
as a
said Q was
viewer,
gonna die.
I don't know if I always totally believed that was a possibility. You know what I mean?
He said he was dying.
He said that, and now, like, clearly he isn't.
And now he's like, "Don't think so linear."
So I never really truly like bought into that angle as to why he was behaving that way. But circling back to like the emotional abuse, right? Like, he tortured them.
Yeah.
He bring them to that planet where they met Aramis and Tasha died?
No,
Wasn't that him?
He had
That was
nothing to
something
do with
else.
Armis. He had
That was
nothing to do.
something else.
He introduced them to the Borg.
Which is like enough, right? Like,
Right? Yeah. No,
Just-
everything Borg related.
I remember that.
That's him.
For some reason, I feel like, oh, you know what? There was a different planet. It was when he had the Napoleon Bonaparte kind of jam going on.
That's the second episode.
Probably, yeah, it was probably the same.
I wrote a college essay on just the character of Q, which, by the way, hard to write when there's so many characters just named Q.
Yeah, how about it? But you know, we were there the whole time that Picard and his crew were abused by Q, and now we're expected to have some type of, you know, willingness to hear him out or to hold some space for empathy and compassion. No, throw him under the time-space continuum jail and don't, manufacture a key.
I mean, I do think it goes into the, like, and I was saying this before you came on, of just like, part of why I think that Troy is written as such a horrible therapist is that none of the writers in the 90s had ever gone to therapy.
How about it?
And so
Imagine that, huh?
like the episode Tapestry, where Picard, where like Riker's even like because he's like, I guess I owe Q, like, my thanks. And Riker's like, why? It sounds, and he says, like, why? It sounds like he put you through hell. And he's like, yes, but it was kind of nice. And I'm just like, okay, you've got a kink, and that's good for you to know about yourself.
That's not helping. And I have questions.
Well, yeah, I mean, your ability, like, to experience a trauma and come out on the other side better for it doesn't mean the person that traumatized you did you a favor. It just meant that you did a lot of work.
And it's like Picard, did realize, because Q was saying this, that he wouldn't have been the man he was if he'd not had this decisive action. Sure, but how is that not the same as when Q introduced him to the Borg? They introduced him to the Borg, and they had to beg Q to bring them away from the Borg because they weren't prepared. And then Q was like, see, I needed to teach you a lesson that you
you didn't.
You were too prideful. Well, and then he says, I can appreciate the lesson, but I believe it could have been learned without the death of 8 of my crewmates or something. And then he's just like, sucks to suck, and leaves. And it's like, I mean, I think it shows how weirdly low Picard has a huge ego and also has very low self-esteem at the same time. And that he's just kind of like, oh, Q was trying to teach me a lesson. That makes the abuse okay. But when his crew is like killed, he's like, what the hell? So, and I
it's the drill tweet. You do not, in fact, have to hand it to him.
Yeah, it is.
When he popped up at the end of that, I was like, this is why Cisco beat your ass. This is why,
right?
Because you don't understand boundaries. You don't have any concept of personal space. This is why you got punched in your mouth, because you don't listen to people when they tell you to leave me the F alone.
But you know what, Kenny, I think you would actually really love to meet my sibling, because my sibling actually did not watch season 3.
Okay.
Fully refused to watch season 3 because Marta was like, I am so pissed that they introduced these new characters, and clearly season 2 was mechanics of finding ways to write them out so that way they could have room for all the legacy characters in season 3. And so Marta was like, I'm not gonna watch it. And I don't blame her, because Rios was just like, I met this girl. I think I'll stay back in time. Screw the time continuum.
Dingle.
And
my favorite thing about season 2 Picard. First of all, my favorite thing about season 1 Picard was Raffi's little power button in her uniform.
Absolutely.
I was like, girl, you better wear that button, girl. So I just love
Raffi.
Me too. I hate what they put her through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting tired, and I feel like I can't be the only one who notices the pattern that when you have influential Black characters in Trek, they have to deal with an insurmountable amount of trauma in order to be validated. And it's getting a little tropey now. Like Trek will put people on the platform, but what good is that platform if horrible things are happening, right? Awesome that so many queer folks were in Discovery, but do I really need to watch Culber die? What is that? You know what I'm saying? That shouldn't have been necessary to endear us to the character.
Well, and that's problematic on 2 dimensions, right? Because that's also the kill your gays trope. It's like the kill your gays trope and the make all the bad things happen to the Black characters trope.
Yeah. So it's just I just have a hard time. Anyway, Picard season 1, Raffi's power button, right?
Yep.
Picard season 2, this is, well, I'm not ashamed of it, but it could be shameful if you're squeamish. Anyway, when Picard and them get transported back in time and he realizes it's like a fascist state or whatever, and they're walking towards some type of building, and he intercepts Raffi with what's the child's name? The Romulan child.
Elnor,
thank you.
The love of my life, sweet precious bean.
He's a sweetheart in real life too.
I've met him once, and I was like, you can't be this nice.
6'4" wee lamb. Just oh, you poor sweet thing, you. Yeah. See, so then that scene when they're when he's walking towards them, and he sees that Raffi's been, apprehending Elnor, and he tries to get them out the way, and that one security officer who was fly as hell for some uniforms. Ugh. I was like, I don't like this fascist nonsense, but these uniforms.
Those are some really good outfits.
On one of the podcasts that I'm on, I did a whole thing about my problematic love of fascist fashion. Not fascism, to be clear, but the fashion is,
Listen, Hugo Boss designed Nazi uniforms.
Yeah. That schmuck.
Woof.
Anyhow,
Yeah.
And Coco Chanel was also a Nazi collaborator.
Yeah, it's gross.
They knew. Hey, they had designers.
Yeah, it's gross.
I'm
So,
Jewish.
All right,
so
Kennedy, what do you got?
on that note, right? As Picard is moving to like sequester his group from everybody else, and that one officer is giving Raffi a hard time for having Elnor, and Picard steps in, and they all step to attention, and he walks up to that one officer, and he looks up and down, and she like pissed herself in real time, and then he kept pushing. I was like, ooh. I didn't know I needed a mean Patrick Stewart in my life. But Daddy, what you need?
No, you should watch
hungry?
his.
You
his
want a
Hamlet.
sandwich? You need something to drink? Let
He
me
plays,
get you slippers.
King Claudius.
What, huh?
He plays King Claudius in Hamlet. It's good.
Oh yeah, he plays a really good villain. There's a film called Green Room where he plays a neo-Nazi, and I just was like,
that movie's sick.
I was like, sir, I have concerns.
And speaking of Raffi, I was like super touched in the very first episode when you see that like she's doing things and that she has to like confront her addiction and wins. And because that was literally like 2 weeks after I was like, I have to stop drinking or it's going to turn into a problem for me. And then to see her like I'm a badass, I'm doing my job, but I get confronted with the thing and I win and I beat the thing and I go do the thing. And I was just like, oh my God, I hope we get more of that this season. And we didn't really.
Not really. Michelle Hurd though made like turned probably what was just a small thing in script and turned it into a moment. And I mean, like
She's
that
so
is
good.
she's so good.
God, she's so good.
Yeah, just right. Oh, my second favorite thing about season 2 is, of course, the great Annie Wersching. She was exquisite.
Oh my God, so good.
So good.
And
just her like spidering around.
Just so.
No, I will say I'm
twitching.
watching. I was watching Picard season 2 with my dad. And the Borg Queen is talking to Jurati and being like, "You need me" and everything, and I just start cackling. My dad's like, "What?" And I was like, "I know lesbians who flirt like this. I know you're not as into queer culture as I am, Dad, but this is flirting."
Right.
I'm sorry. I was like, as a bi woman, like this is flirting. This is the most queer coded thing I've ever seen.
I mean, clearly the Borg Queen is pansexual, right? Like,
yeah.
She doesn't care anything. She's gonna put her plugs in you. You're getting plugged.
Yeah. But like,
assimilate me, mama. Assimilate me.
Disrespectful because it's not consensual.
Right.
That's the problem. That's the only problem with the Borg.
And my favorite thing about Picard season 3 was everybody, like, I didn't know I needed a Boricua Vulcan, but I'm here for it, and I need Boricua Vulcans.
Yeah, I think that was the thing that I messaged in the group chat. I was like, oh.
I
didn't know evil Vulcans would be so hot that he's just like, he's like, hey, crime's gonna happen. It's only logical.
In the world in
I'm
Utopia,
in
crime is logical. I was like, you right? What you
I was
need?
like, yeah, was it?
Take it.
You're
right. You're absolutely right.
And I just remember, I know. I forget his name, but I know he's done a lot of things, but I remember seeing him in Oz and he was so good.
Yeah.
The old HBO prison show Oz, like, I mean, outlandishly good in that show. And that, that was another thing. I was like, God, he's so good. And it was like, I hoped that he would be a thing like through the rest of the series. Like, I get that, the story kind of moved on from there, but I was like, I need more of him in my life.
This is kind of the thing though, like of why we need those like 20 episode seasons again.
Right.
Like, give me the stuff.
Yeah.
Call me Britney Spears, because give me more.
Like that, but that stems to like a real time evergreen, apparently, industry problem, right? Like written television like stopped happening for a little bit there when the writers went on strike, and that's how we got reality television, and that's when society's perception of entertainment
is scripted, for the record.
But you know what I'm saying? Like those people, there was not those folks weren't trained or talented in any real way. It was just a cult of personality. And when society's perception of entertainment shifted to prioritize that, it sidelined literally everything else. So now you're looking at economic pushback for this, right? Because studios don't want to pay the money. They don't want to. Writers.
And they're looking at another writer strike. And last time there was a writer strike, LA lost $3 billion.
So
That
you
was
either
coming.
pay people their
And they
money.
can't afford that. So they should. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So, until, I mean, obviously it's not going to go back, right? It's just that the market is not
Right.
structured for long seasons like that anymore. But there is something to be said about the mid-season break, right? It gave
Yeah.
Prodigy a breath of fresh air. 'Cause that
Prodigy
shit
is so
was
strong.
dragging. That was dragging, honey. It was
Yeah.
dragging. It was dragging. I was upset because they left the Cation baby in the first episode. I said, what the hell
Yep.
is going on?
Yep.
And it just didn't like get its stuff together until we came back from the break. So if
Yeah.
we got to take 6 months to finish up a season, so be it. You give the writers a break, do whatever you need to do as far as making sure that the crew
and
is
I will
able to
say,
crank that out,
especially in Picard's defense, they were filming like during quarantine and like lockdown and stuff. So I will say that. But though I will say my theory, this is just I have no idea. You know how Vadic had all her like, I guess they were also changelings, like guards with her that were some nondescript alien form that were fully masked up and like didn't speak. I'm assuming that was to keep the actors in masks.
It could be. My theory,
because I was like, why aren't these guys Jem'Hadar?
Yeah, my theory was that she happened to be one of the ones of that batch that could mimic a face, right? The ones that were that were like goons essentially couldn't pass as humanoid as solids. So those suits were not only retaining their shape, but also probably saving Post a whole shit ton of money.
But honestly, part of me wonders if they were like, yo, we just keep these actors in masks.
Yeah. I don't
I
know.
have no idea. And we don't even need them to learn lines. They just go and then we dub over.
I really resent them involving the changelings without
having Deep Space Nine.
I resent them involving the changelings specifically in the third season, the final season of a TNG spinoff, because like you have Worf. We keep acknowledging that the time frames are congruent and everybody knows it, but because the executives and the studio and everybody involved mishandled Avery Brooks so poorly, we will never get Sisko in Trek ever again, not on screen anyhow, and probably not his voice, because I'm sure he owns it because he's not playing out here in these streets. So for that to have been fumbled in that way and then not make some type of acknowledgement as to what that crew went through is really, I think a smack in the face. And furthermore, if you're going to involve big baddies from other series, the fact that that door didn't open up into fluidic space and we saw the Undine pissed AF is a dropped ball, because we saw them build a whole station specifically to take over Starfleet. So we know they hate us enough. We know they're spiteful and manipulative. And if you play STO, they're still with the shits, right? So to speak. Why not use this way? You can bring in Janeway. This way you can bring in the Borg, because those storylines are entwined anyhow.
Unpundin made a very good point that I thought it was weird that if Earth falls, the galaxy falls. Bruh, why? You act like the Dominion isn't out there or any other Alpha Quadrant powers. Like, but also, you're telling me after all the times that Earth has been threatened, Starfleet hasn't been like, we need a backup.
Operating
you're telling me everything's on Earth?
That might have been part
Even
of
the U.S. government has a lone survivor.
that might have been like left over from the war. I think.
Yeah.
The impact of the Dominion War is something that is very not underrated, but it's just underexplored. That was a
absolutely
big effing problem. And I mean, to the point where they changed their uniforms to wartime grays, I call them. So this way, like from a distance, you can't tell who's command, who's engineering, and who's medical. Right. They just all look Starfleet, and you can't tell that's a tactic. That's a field tactic. That's a specific for them to have to change everybody's uniform to follow this. Lets you know that it wasn't just this one little pocket of the fleet that had to deal with this problem. Like, it was everybody.
And also, that's one of my favorite little details in Deep Space Nine, that when you find Bashir in the prison camp, he's wearing the old uniform.
Yeah.
The uniforms have switched by that point. He's wearing the old uniform, and because we still don't know when he got.
Right.
But we do know that he would have he got captured before Kira gave birth. So the changeling was the doctor that handled O'Brien's child's pregnancy birth.
Yeah, hot
And
mess.
also did brain surgery on Cisco.
Hot butter mess. So please don't sit here and make casual references to this galaxy altering event as if it's, you know, happened hundreds of years ago. Like it's not even like a generation later. These people are still alive. They're still enlisted in Starfleet. So like,
Right.
Yeah. Also, again, Unpundit said, like, also how much damage can one space station take? Like, another thing with that, the space station wouldn't have fallen if Cisco was there.
Hello, goodbye.
Let's talk about how much damage Cisco has taken. Like, Deep Space Nine, Cisco
had that jaw moving. It was a station. What you mean this bitch could move? He says,
like he only knows something's going wrong if his baseball starts to fall over. Then he's like, oh shit. All right, now they've gone too far.
So to answer Unpundun's question about the timeline, so Picard specifically says 35 years have passed since Best of Both Worlds, and if you look at the air dates, they're actually 35 years and like 6 months apart. So I think that's clarifying, at least for the timeline's sake.
That makes me so mad. Like that, this whole Irumodic syndrome specifically, it has my.
Well, yeah, here's the thing. Their plan was that they were just gonna do one season of Picard because Patrick Stewart was only gonna do one season, and then they were like, okay, we're gonna do more. So then they're like, okay, now that we're gonna do more, we've got these other actors who want to come back. We have to figure out how to write them. So now we're gonna have a season where we unwrite all the season 1 characters, but also they had to make up, because I think the plan, I imagine the plan was season 1, Picard's gonna die at the end of his Irumodic syndrome.
But that's the thing, he never freaking had it.
No, I know, but I think
right.
their plan was we gotta kill him and it'll be a proper final goodbye for the character of Picard. And then they, even though it wouldn't have been a proper goodbye because he never had Irumodic, but anyway,
hot mess. Especially because,
and then in season 3 they're like, he's a robot. That's a problem.
Yeah, so I know I have a source that has informed me.
Picard had Jack when he was 80.
I have a source.
Sorry, that's the cruelest joke on women everywhere.
I mean,
Man, just in his 80s. Sorry. Yes.
It's okay. Lost my fucking train of thought. God damn it.
So sorry.
God damn it. What was I saying? Scheiße.
We're talking about timelines.
Irumodic
my
syndrome.
source. Yes.
Yes,
so
your source. Yes.
This person, who will remain nameless, was on set during season 2 and season 3.
You can say Patrick Stewart.
No, I wish. Oh my god. Listen, if I knew Patrick Stewart. Anyway.
Kennedy's like, I want to talk to y'all.
No, I'm saying it would be Kennedy Allen Stewart. So, clearly he likes them young, and we about the same age. So anyhow, God damn it, you keep interrupting me, and I keep
your source.
Yeah,
source.
My source was on set for season 2 and 3. Season 3 was shot like in congruency with season 2.
Right.
Yeah. They shot straight through.
The script was being changed as they were filming on set because somebody else, who shall remain nameless, decided they wanted to change things just because they could. So that's why season 2 feels a little and then everything wraps up at season 3 because my source was like, I need y'all to get it together. This is we can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
And it's so apparent. And we usually don't know about production issues in real time as we're watching them. Not even with the internet being able to inform us of every given thing, right? For that to be so readily apparent through the actual narrative itself is what is most heartbreaking about Picard. Because I don't want to see this team of old folk go out like that. You know, I just don't. I didn't want to see them go out like they did on Nemesis, but at that point, you kind of have to let it go and make way for the next generation. You don't have to say, hey,
Title
we're
drop.
moving out of the way for the next. Just move. Just move. And it's such a weird reflection of what's going on socially about older generations really being, repulsed almost by the way younger generations have accepted themselves and are expressing themselves and are living in their actualized truth. Like, it's just upsetting to see that in Trek, because it's like, you're supposed to set the standard. You're supposed to push the boundaries of how we all perceive ourselves and each other. If I wanted to watch real time, allegory for what's happening right now, I would watch the news.
Yeah.
Or I'd, watch any given YouTube channel with the same type of person on it. Like, I just...
Yeah, I need to say, Kennedy, the information that you just shared is validating, because I, like, watching it, felt that. And normally I have gifts and talents in life, and picking apart stories is not one of them, just being all the way honest.
Aww.
And as I was watching, I felt like that's probably what was happening. And I felt like if I could feel that, that's like, because normally that shit just goes way over my head.
Yeah.
And I was like,
edits, real-time edits happen.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. Something's just not working, an actor's struggling with something, whatever. That stuff happens. But for it to have been so freaking obvious is not a good look. And
I feel like oftentimes those rewrites and reworks are more to like, oh, we have this thing that we're trying to say and maybe we're not being clear about it, as opposed to just like reworking like major story things about like changing the way events go. Like that's and not to say that can't work, but it's more, I feel like it's got to be more difficult. Yeah. Right.
It's just upsetting. And it was great to see everybody, be there and together again. But because I grew up watching Star Trek, I can't help but look at it through the lens of, is this an acceptable thing during a very tumultuous classist time right now? To see the old folks triumph over the new young folk and having to save them from themselves. And
the boomer fantasy of all the 25-year-olds and younger can't
and now
do
we're
shit.
all together and we all look good. And it's like, well, yeah, you're actors. You make money. You make our money. We are giving you the money to do this thing. And you have access to healthcare, to cosmetic surgeons, to whatever the case may be. To better living conditions that we have enabled you to do. So why I gotta sit here and look at you be old and look fabulous and then not feel terrible about myself? It's just
and I that's part of why I was so frustrated with the fact that they wrote out so many of the new characters, because I think it would have been nice to have had that mix, because it's very that's one of those things that, I mean, we definitely talk about just races not hanging out, just diverse friend groups not being a thing, but age is a huge thing. Old people don't talk to young people, and then they make assumptions about young people, and young people don't talk to old people, and they make assumptions about old people, and then we all hate each other. Like, it's part of it, and it's the same in classism too. Like, and so it would have been really nice to have had Elnor. Y'all brought him back. Like,
and also, like, how you gonna give Girardi Borg upgrades and not bring her back when we're dealing with the Borg?
Yeah, no, I was so confused when they were like, "And here's the bag Borg Queen." I was like, "Wait, isn't that Borgrati? What?
What is happening? We watched this girl get a whole upgrade. Where is she? Y'all don't have her number? You can't be like, where you at?"
I was like, well, surely Soji could help them.
We don't know where she is. Just magically, there's a whole planet
she's
of
off
androids
being an ambassador with all the other high-power androids that can't help, I guess.
Why would I take advantage of that resource when I can scoot on over to this museum and hop on this raggedy behind ship
Or
instead?
Wesley and Corey just hop up, be like, yo.
Nothing.
And Wesley's like, hey, I also felt bad that I was specifically told by the Traveler not to help the indigenous people.
Just
like, I'm here now.
It's really frustrating, especially when we all know how it could have been, how many opportunities were squandered. And as General Ndoye says, I keep this in my thing of motivational quotes: opportunities multiply as they are seized. So what is happening? What's happening?
Yeah.
What is?
Hey, another reason I love Discovery.
Ndoye?
Yeah,
that was a bad joint. when Book tried to confront her and he almost died 4 times in that hallway, and when a matter of 30 seconds, I said, bro, you need to reevaluate how you talk to people, because she was like cat. I was like,
All right, friends, with that, I think it's probably our time. Kennedy, you're a delight.
I love
just
having
need you
you
to
on.
know that I love you so much.
I love you guys.
Yeah, this is wonderful.
So Kennedy, since you are the guest, let's have you plug all of the things. Where can people find you? Where can people see all the stuff that you're doing?
Sure. You can find me on Women at Warp. Just go to womenatwarp.com or Women at Warp on all the socials. It is our intersectional diversity in infinite combinations podcast. We talk about all the special things and what makes Trek amazing through the lens of modern womanism and feminism. I also have a show called Your Away Team, which is an exploration into the temporal goings on of Starfleet. It's a little brain project I have. It's in a relaunch. It'll be lit though, because on May 21st May 20th and 21st, both Your Away Team and a member of Women at Warp, myself and Sue, will be at Trek Long Island.
Wait, you're gonna be there?
We're gonna be there
both
too.
gonna be there.
It's just
No,
Callie and
I almost
we
forgot
don't have a-
myself and like flashed the crap. Be like, yeah, it'll be litty titty, as they say.
Oh, that's so exciting.
So we're
My
gonna have a good
parents
time.
are coming,
apparently.
yo. My parents were like,
parents?
"Oh, it's on Long Island. Let's go."
You're gonna
And I
love
was like,
Anna's parents. They're
Yo, they're so
fantastic.
fun.
Okay, I'll behave myself then. I'm really excited
No,
because my
you're-
partner gets to come to his first Trek convention, and like I've never had a partner like while I was doing all of this like con stuff. So it'll be really sweet to see. We had a whole bunch of panels. Women at Warp's panels are both days, both Saturday and Sunday. Your Away Team's panel is strictly on Saturday. All those details will be up. Hopefully I will see everyone else, as many people as possible. We will have a table, so please come by and say hey.
Yeah, and I'll just say, like, as a person who doesn't generally enjoy listening to discussion podcasts, Women at Warp is one of the few
love
that I
Women at
do.
Warp.
Yeah,
I
just very
was
good.
telling my mother about Women at Warp, and she misheard me and thought that that the podcast was called Women on Wharf, which is a very different kind of podcast.
Listen, it's
Not that different.
It's a multi-modular apparatus when we talk about that dude. So there's
true.
If you
double
guys
the
ever
fun that
opened
can
an
be had there.
OnlyFans, it would be called Women on Wharf.
Oh my gosh.
Well, friends, thank you for joining. Friends, thank you for watching. And we'll talk soon.
Yeah, see people at Trek Long Island.